What's going on, everybody? It's Wave MMA here, and today I just wanted to talk about the next championship matches for every division. Um, yeah, so let's get started. Let's hop right into this one, guys. No time to waste. Uh, so first of all, we got Pantoja versus Alvazi. This is I think, a tougher matchup for Pantoja than people are, leading on. I do, you know, I think that in a lot of ways, it's more favorable for Albazi. You look back at Pandoja's most recent loss, and it was a while ago. He's definitely learned from it by now. But you look back and you think, wow, despite throwing up a bunch of sub attempts, he really did just accept bottom position on a wrestler for the entire 3 rounds. And Pantoja's not bad on the feet at all. But he's not an elite striker. I don't think he's going to be able to do to Abazi what Kai Kara France did. Um, it sucks because Kai Kara should have won that fight. That was, I feel like people don't talk about that robbery enough. But it is what it is. So, um, yeah, I, you know, it's a hard matchup for Pandoja, and it's also hard for Albazi. I don't think Albazi's fought anybody quite at the level of Pantoja. Um, barring Kai Kara France. Even though I think Pantoja is better than France, I think that it's a better matchup for Kara than it is for Pantoja. But with that being said, it's your boy Pantoja. I mean, come on. He's still gonna get it done. He's still gonna get it done. So, yeah, if throw up a quick pick, I think I'd pick Pantoja to win by second round sub, maybe third round sub. Um, yeah, I think he's gonna be able to tie him up and get a finish here. But with that being said, man, it's still a close fight. It's still a hard fight. It's one of the harder ones I had to pick on here. And again, I think it's a hard one to predict. And I am aware that they're not fighting, potentially not soon. I do think Albazi should get a fight. You know, Pantoja's already beat Moreno twice. He's beat Royval twice. We don't need to see those run back. We don't need to see them beat Albazi. I think they're both favorable. At least Moreno should beat Albazi. I think Pantoja should just take Albazi now. I think it's a better idea. So, anywho, moving forward, O'Malley versus Marab. I already kind of talked about this in previous videos, so you might already know my prediction. But, got the tall guy versus the short guy kind of deal going on here. Striker versus wrestler. Um, point striker slash long, able to maintain distance while kind of striker versus uh, control time, spamming takedowns wrestler. I think it's pretty obvious who you got to go with here. A lot of people are picking Marab. I think that's dumb. Like, straight up, I think that's just stupid. I think that's a bad pick. Rob is shown to be chinny, right? O'Malley is shown to do well against, at least against Sterling. He's always been very, very good at staying elusive, um, and also at being able to get shots fired off, uh, super accurately, pretty much from any angle. Dude's a sniper. So, with that being said, I think it's kind of obvious going on O'Malley here. I'm gonna go by a first or second round TKO. I think I'll go second round TKO. I'll give it a round, for O'Malley to find his footing. I'll go second round TKO. All right, you gotta know what's coming next. Moving to the featherweight division here, we got Topuria versus Volkanovski. And there's not much to say for this fight. If Volk can maintain his chin, if he can avoid the big shots from Ilya, he can definitely win this fight. I think he can outpoint Ilya. But that's hard, man. Ilya's throwing these super long combos, and I don't need to talk about this one too much. I feel like everybody's talked about it a ton at this point. And I also think that a lot of people are picking Topuria in this rematch. Uh, yeah, man, he's durable. He throws long combinations. He doesn't have to really be worried about much from Volk. Volk wasn't even able to like actually put out the Korean Zombie when the Korean Zombie was way over the hill. So As much as I like both of these guys, some of you may know Topuria is my favorite fighter, so I may be a little biased, but I gotta go with Topuria. I gotta go with Topuria here. Let me go to the next slide. I gotta go with the El Matador to get it done. All right, moving forward. The Battle of the Head Kickers. Islam Makhachev versus Justin Gaethje. This is a fun matchup. It's really gonna come down to how does Justin's striking look when he has to worry about the ground threat. I also don't think people pay Islam striking enough, credence. Dude's really clean on the feet, man. Like he's not Habib at all. The dude is great on the feet. But then you look at the other side. Justin's also improved so much. He's much more patient. Justin and Islam both carry pretty crazy power. They both seem to have relatively good chins. I'd say Islam definitely has a weaker chin between the two based on the fact that he has been flatline KO'd. But he's not been hit or rocked as much either with his wrestling. He's able to avoid that more. It's a hard one to pick, but I think with that wrestling threat, and let me just move forward to this next slide. I think with that wrestling threat, Islam gets this done. Islam is gonna make this tricky. It's not gonna be like, Justin's looked great in his last couple fights, but he hasn't really had to worry, right? He really hasn't had to worry about the ground game. Fighting Dustin and fighting Fiziev. I think with the wrestling threat there, Justin's striking is going to look a lot worse. His hands are going to be lower. He's going to be open to a lot of headshots. Or if he keeps his hands up, if he stays patient on the feet, he's going to be really open to some double legs from Islam or single legs. He's going to be open to it. And I'm calling that now. I'm picking Islam to win this. But this is a close fight, and I think this is closer than people will lead on to. I think Justin could honestly knock out Islam, man. So hopefully this fight happens. Hopefully Islam doesn't duck Justin. Take this Dustin fight right now and whatever. And hopefully Justin doesn't lose to Max, because that's also a winnable fight for Max. But this should be the next. This should be the next fight. This should be how it plays out. All right, we got Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad in the welterweight division. Uh, um, this is interesting, right? Because we've seen them fight a little bit, and it wasn't close at the time. Edwards was piecing up Bilal, and I know Bilal's improved. His striking looks a lot better than it did at the time. He's a lot more technical, a lot cleaner, and his wrestling is still just as effective against pretty much everybody. Looking at that Burns fight, it wasn't close. Of course, Burns only had one arm, and Bilal wasn't able to finish him. Uh, but yeah, I think it's tough. I think it's tough. Edwards is really good at maintaining distance. He is pretty solid, not like amazing, but pretty solid takedown defense. He's not I mean, it's tough. Yeah, Bilal also doesn't really have much of a submission threat, and I think that's gonna favor Edwards a lot. Like Edwards might drop around or two, wrestling with Bilal, right? But he's not gonna have to worry about being finished. In fact, Edwards may have more of a BJJ threat than Bilal does. I guess that's to be seen. But with that being said, I'm going with Edwards on this one. I think this is a very winnable matchup for him. I think it's favorable for him, right? I think he's still the better striker. I think Bilal looked great against Sean Brady, and he looked great against Burns, but Burns and Sean Brady aren't elite strikers. They're not even great strikers, right? And I hate to say it. Burns relies on an overhand. People love Burns. I love Burns. Don't get me wrong. Um, but people overhype him a lot. Like he relies on an overhand, and if you remember back to the Wonder Boy fights and stuff, when he can't get that, firing off, then he just pins you against the cage and tries to get takedowns, and he'll just spam that. Um, right. So up until that Hamza fight, I feel like a lot of people weren't really on that train, and honestly, Hamza's not a very good striker either. So you know, Burns is not a great person to show how good of a striker you are against, especially Burns with one arm. Um, and then Sean Brady. I mean, Sean Brady obviously doesn't have the best striking in the world. Obviously relies on his wrestling. So I think Edwards will piece him up. I think he'll really destroy him here on the feet. And as long as he can keep it on the feet, I think he wins this. I don't know if he can wrestle with Bilal, but I don't think Bilal will be able to get him down. Just like the first fight, I think that the shots are going to be pretty obvious. I think Edwards is going to be really good at maintaining that distance. I don't think it's close. I feel like this is probably the easiest pick, actually, out of all of these fights. All right, moving forward to the middleweight division. Battle of the Battle of the Africans. Trust. Right? We got Duplessis versus Izzy. Um, this is a really, really interesting fight because Izzy's coming off of a long layoff now. Probably, I think the longest layoff in his career since becoming champion and everything. And obviously losing it, whatever. Uh, and on the other side, you've got Duplessis, who, in a lot of ways, like, yes, that win over Rob Whittaker was legit, but in a lot of ways, it seems like he's almost fluked his way here, right? Um, because he's not the best at anything that he does, and his technique is really strange and not technically good. But he's got so much power, right? And he can really just walk through, and use his size as that difference maker. I mean, he technically beat Sean. I still see people calling that a robbery. I think that fight's too close to call a robbery. I had Sean winning, but I don't think you can call that a robbery. I think Duplessis is the rightful champ. Um, yeah, I'd say between the two of these, it's gonna come down to if Duplessis can get his wrestling off. I don't think, even with a layoff, I don't think Duplessis survives on the feet with Izzy. This isn't Rob Whittaker jabbing at you, and hoping you don't throw anything powerful back, right? This isn't that case. This is Izzy, who is an absolute elite striker, and who can maintain distance extremely well. Versus a guy who's going to be constantly trying to close his distance. But honestly, like, now that I'm talking about it, I'm starting to feel like I'm making the wrong pick here. Because Izzy is also very good at catching people who are coming in, lunging in. And I guess I might as well, yeah. If it's not obvious based on what I just said, it's Duplessis. I am gonna stay with this, but I could definitely see Izzy catching Duplessis on one of his rushes. The way that he wings punches and steps through each one, almost like he's just walking forward. Um, that works great against a guy like Rob Whittaker, as long as you have, the chin. And honestly, Rob doesn't hit that hard, but with Izzy, it's a little different, man. He could get caught on his way in very, very easily. But I think the wrestling will be the big difference. I think he's smart enough to not do that immediately. I think he's smart enough to take Izzy down and ground and pound him or try to go for a sub or something. And I don't think it'll be super, super easy to get him down, but I think once he does, he'll be much stronger on the ground than Izzy. All right, let's move forward. Let's move forward. Light heavyweight. We got Pereira versus Hill. Um, I decided to put Pereira's whole family here, all of his ancestors, as showing of support for our boy. Uh, yeah, so this is gonna come down to a striking fight, and it's a Glory champion versus um a dude, I don't know, some out of shape dude, looks like he's coming out of a bad marriage or something. Like, bro looks like he just finished a six pack every time he walks into the cage, right? It's hard to say. I think this might be right there with Pantoja as one of the hardest ones to call because you gotta give Hill his flowers, right? You gotta acknowledge that he's 100% one of the best strikers in the division. Um, he's got a lot of power. Like, his technique is pretty crisp. Even those head kicks he was throwing against Glover. Of course, that's old man Glover, so it's really really hard to say. But you know he pretty much always hits his target. And then you got Pereira on the other side, who's going to be winging those leg kicks. I don't think Hill's faced anybody that throws leg kicks a lot, especially not somebody that throws them like Pereira does. So he's definitely going to be eating those leg kicks. And then on top of that, Pereira obviously has that mean hook that could put Hill out. Um, yeah, it's a close fight. It's a hard fight to call. But with that being said, I'm going with Hill on this one. I think that Pereira gets hit too much. I think he takes too many shots. Like you saw against Yuri Prohaska, he ate a lot of shots before he put Yuri out. I think Hill's a better striker, more technical striker than Yuri. So I think it's a hard pick. I could see it going either way, but I think Hill will get a TKO, maybe second, third round. I could even see it going to a decision, but I'm gonna guess earlier TKO for Hill. But with that being said, I think the longer the fight goes, the more it'll favor Pereira. Um, yeah. So let's move on to the heavyweight division. Aspinall versus Jones, young guy versus old guy. If this fight ever even fucking happens, yeah. So it's gonna come down, I think, to the wrestling and to Jones' chin. We don't really know how Jones' chin is. Because he's gonna get hit by Aspinall. Um, Plus Jones is on another long layoff now, right? Since he's waiting for Stipe. Like, who knows if these two ever even fight? But assuming they fight, dude, it's Aspinall. It's this one's not that close. It's really not that close. I know Jones fans are gonna be coping like a motherfucker in the comments. Dude, it is not that close. Aspinall is going to do it, man. And maybe I'm just a Jones hater, but fucking A. Aspinall has the better striking. You know, maybe not more technical, but at heavyweight, it's not necessarily about being technical. He's going to be carrying more power. You know, he put down Sergey Pavlovich, right? Pretty handedly, and you could maybe call that a flukester win, whatever. It was super early. You'd have to run it back to know for sure, but that doesn't matter, man, because Aspinall, he's been putting people down, putting people down and out. Jones won't be able to rely on his grappling here. I think that he's not so much of an elite grappler that it's going to make that big of a difference. Um, it's hard to say. Man, you know what? If Jones does come back, though, and he beats Aspinall, I'll never fucking doubt this man again. I swear to God. You know what? I'll start calling him the GOAT, regardless of the PED stuff, if he comes back and beats Aspinall. This fight probably won't happen. And I guess I might as well throw this out there. If it ends up being Curtis Blades versus Tom Aspinall, I'm still going Aspinall. I think that Curtis is too chinny. I think he's too easy to catch on the feet. I don't think he's going to want to take it to the ground, and I think Aspinall is better on the feet. So let me know what you guys think. Is there anything I got wrong here? Anything that you'd rather see other than these matchups? Let me know in the comments below. Yeah. I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, evening, and I'll see you later.